I'm delighted to have here directly from Bordeaux. Giulio Boato is the co-director of Tiziano, L'Impero del Colore, Titian, the Empire of Color. And we are waiting here in Italy to watch this film that will be released in just a few days' time. Thank you for this conversation, Giulio.
Thanks to you. Thanks to you. It's a pleasure.
So I would like to know how you come to direct this important, I would say, biography and researches on Tiziano.
Yeah, it's in a way, it's the first time for me, let's say, because I've done many biographies of artists, but they were all alive. So I was following them while working, almost by myself or with a little small crew. And I was trying to tell their story through a very specific point of view, which was mine. And in this way with Tiziano, it's a very different way of working because Titian, as we all know, is dead and is a real master. And so actually I was called by the producers to make this film together with Laura Chiosoni, which is the co-director. And we worked with a very huge team, actually, because the idea came from the producers, Kublai Film, and then arrived Sky, and then arrived Arte. And so we had many, many minds on it to work together to make this long story, because it's 1.5 hours to tell a lifelong of 80 years. Titian was, he lived a long time in between two plagues in Venice. And so there's a lot to tell. And his production is huge. He made hundreds of paintings and we had to choose, of course. So first the authors decided to which painting we should stick, because he made so many paintings. So we had really to just make a selection, and we went for 50 paintings around, which is already a lot. And guess that Titian lived in Venice, but his paintings are all around the world. And even at his time, his paintings were really traveling around Europe. So we had to film them in the real places where they are. We need to go to Rome first, but then to Madrid, then to Vienna, and then also in Venice. There are not so many in Venice, but they are in the churches, for example, I Frari, in which they were made for. So that's fantastic to film such a big work in the place that was made for it.
And how you feel as a Venetian as well, an Italian, to have the honor of portraying such a master in art?
That's true. That's true. Being a Venetian, and now I live in France, but I was born and raised in Venice, and that was fantastic, of course, to be there, to film such a master that everybody knows there, and to be allowed to get inside of those churches with such great technical stuff to really film in detail these huge paintings, because it's like 7 meters high, for example, Assunta in the Frari. And so it was really, I was really honored, let's say, even feeling like personally involved as I'm from there. And Venice, for sure, is also co-protagonist of the film, because we see a lot of images of the city that we filmed before during lockdown. So we can see a city which is empty and almost out of the time, let's say. We don't see it contemporary, we don't see tourists so much. And so it fits very well with Titian's work.
And I would like to know your takes on the profile of Titian's, what you learned by working on this project, about him, of course.
I learned so much things because I studied it as everybody in high school. So I had some little remembers of what happened. And then, of course, going deep inside with the authors and the historians who really knows a lot. But we had like 13 hours of interview, I guess, at the end, and we had to make them down to 1.5 hours. And so we had huge information, and we were obliged to take out a lot of it, unfortunately. But for sure, it was very, very learning to also. We also had Jeff Koons in between the people speaking, and that was fantastic. I think at the beginning I couldn't believe that he was on in this project, because in a way you can think they're very, very different artists, but in another way they're really similar, and you can really hear it from his voice that he himself thinks about Titian as a friend or as a colleague. Let's say they really feel like colleagues, because both were contemporary of their times, and so they had to, as Koons say, they had to put food on the table. That's also a very great way, I think, of thinking about art, which is not just something that you do because you're inspired, you know, you don't know what to do, or this is really a romantic idea, you know, just genius. Titian had a business. He had to run a business. He was the first painter who really had to run many employees, let's say. And that's great to know that art can also be a way of living in a way. And to build such an empire, it was amazing at that time, I think.
And while reviewing your biography and your works, I discover also your approach that is made with a lot of researches on what you're gonna then create with your narrative. So I would like to know why you choose this kind of poetic narrative, and why it's upon your thoughts the best way to approach such an important and difficult, I would say, work in art history.
Yeah, actually has been a big challenge to really think together with all the people that worked on it, producers, authors, directors, how to tell the story. Because in my previous work, I really was led by what the artist was doing in that moment. So I could really follow him and learning by being with them for many years. In this way, it's very different because we already know everything, let's say, about what Titian did. But as you know, it's too much. So we really have to find a point of view, a focus. And this is what the authors did, to really try to make a story, a narrative of his lifetime, but with a point of view, let's say. And the point of view we chose from the beginning was his hunger for glory, let's say, or we could say hunger for being the best at his times. Actually, this is really what he did. He managed to become the number one of his period for a while, and then of course somebody else came, and then the life changes. But he did so, and he did it by going to the best people at that time, to the most important people, to first the church in Venice, then the kings, let's say, of the little places in Italy, and then he went to the Pope and to the Emperor of Spain. So he really had a strategy, and we wanted in the film to show his strategy, to show his hunger for power, in a way, the power of making art, let's say. And so it was a long work to when you make a documentary, you have an idea, you write the films 3 times in a way, because you have an idea first, and you write it down, then you go filming and do interviews, and of course the people don't tell you exactly what you think they will tell, so you have to rewrite your idea, and then you go in editing, and then you have to write it again, because of course you have to mix everything together and find a way through it. So it's constant rewriting and reshaping of the film, and by many different people, because we are 2 directors, and then there's many people working all together. We send the film to one who sends notes, and then we modify it, and all the way around till the very end. So it's an ongoing process which took more than 1 year. And finally we got a result, which we're proud of. But yeah, it was not that easy from the beginning.
And you've been awarded in 2015 in Rome for your work on Juliette Fabre, and so in other important achievements and awards. Which one of them you are much more related or that gave you major satisfactions?
It's true. From each artist, I did 4 portraits of artists from now, let's say big portraits. And from each of them, I think I stole something, not even doing it consciously. But of course, when you spend time with such big artists who have really like a mind who's always going on, you absorb like a sponge. And so I could say every film in a way echoes the artist which is the portrait of, and in myself some things stay. I cannot say nowadays what is from which, but I'm sure that from each of those people, which are Juliette Fabre in the first place, and then Romeo Castellucci, who's a major theater director in Italy, and then Shiro Takatani, who is media artist from Japan, and the last film, which is finished and we are still waiting to show it after Titian, will be Heiner Goebbels, which is a composer in Germany, which is the film I made with my own film production, 313 film production. And so from each of these artists, there's something who stays in me, let's say, and then you can see in the next film. That's something really amazing of how art works and how you still learn every time when you do a film or work, you still learn something, and that's something that moves me to do this job, let's say.
La grande arte al cinema, the great art at cinema, is a project by Nexo Digital, and I would like to know why it's important to watch this kind of documentaries in order to have a major view on the masters in art history, because I think it's also for me important to have something that is modern, is different from studying on books. And I would like to know which are your suggestions by watching these films, how the audience should approach to this kind of new biographies.
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful way to know things that we think we may know, but we don't actually know. For example, everybody knows the name of Titian, but when I studied it 20 years ago, and nowadays we know different things. He's an old artist, but the research is still going on. So, for example, Amor Sacro, Amor Profano, which is this great painting that he made when he was around 22 years old, it's a painting we still don't know exactly what it means. And so the interpretations that were made 20 years ago are different from now. So this would be even only one reason to go nowadays to see this kind of film, even from people who are interested in it, but maybe have other knowledge about it. And then, of course, we tried in a way to open it up, the film, to audiences which are not used to go to cinema to watch documentaries. So this is why the work of Laura Cassone, my co-director, is very, very important, because she took care of all the what we call reenactments, which means the parts in which we try to give an image to Titian's ideas, let's say. So we didn't want to restage the paintings, because the painting can speak by themselves, but we wanted to give life to his mind in a way. So Laura decided to build up an atelier, which is not a real atelier, but just a mental atelier in which all the inspirations come to him. And that's a way also to, I think, to intrigue the audience nowadays, which is used to other means of communication, which are very fast, they move very fast. And documentary is usually felt as something slow in a way, no? And so we tried even with music. We have 2 wonderful musicians who worked on this film. And the music is really something that takes you in, that takes the attention, takes the pulse, let's say, the rhythm. And we worked on this film with only original music. Giovanni Schiavano and Lorenzo Danesin made this music together with me and Laura Cassone, who were trying to give our advices on it. And I think it's something very, very important, and that you feel at the cinema. Really, I think that's why I would say to people, it's only 3 days, but it's a good way. you should go now to see it, because if you can see then afterwards in Sky on TV, but it's not the same thing. The sound is made to really impress. And also the voiceover of the film, which was a wonderful Italian actor, dubber, who is the one, Massimo Corvo, who also did the voice, for example, of Morpheus in Matrix. And you can imagine how strong is the power of just this voice that takes you in a story which you think could be distant from you, but we try to make it closer in a way. And voila, that's my suggestion to people who are wondering if it's worth it to go to see it.
And how you see the evolution in technology in this kind of genre? I mean, we just review and report on Biennale Immersive and the XR, AR, and how will be contaminated your work by these extreme, in a way, technologies?
Yeah, I think it's a new whole world to explore, definitely. We can make fantastic things with those kind of 3D new technology. But even in this film, which is just a simple 2D, let's say, you will see there are some images of very close up of colors moving in space, let's say. And to make those kind of things, we need to use a very complex robotic arm, which is huge like this room, and which can move super fast around an object. So then you can slow down the image and have the impression that of the slow motion, but it's something that is very, very complex to achieve, and you need such a complicated mechanic arm to make. So there's a lot of technology, let's say, a new kind of technology, even in this kind of films, which can look normal, let's say, but there are a few things that are really new in a way that couldn't be done 5 or 10 years ago, for sure.
And if you had to choose one artist to depict with your art, which one you would like to, the next artist you would like to depict with your work?
I don't have a name yet, but I think I would like to go for somebody who makes cinema, because I did artists who make theater, who makes visual arts, who make music, and I think nowadays I'm looking forward to steal actually from somebody who's making my own art in a much better way, of course, because that's also the aim of my films, to follow people which are great artists. And yeah, I think I would like to go for that now, to show how it works for a director to put on stage a film or many films, or a career made of films, and maybe mixed with theater. I don't know, let's say. Let's see what happens.
Which kind of suggestions would you give to younger generation that wanted to follow your path in film production and video editing?
I would really say to believe in it, because nowadays it's so easy actually to make films by yourself. With just a phone, you can make such a good film. You just need to work on it. And that's fantastic, because the technology is for everybody now. And of course, then what is difficult, it's to make a living out of it, to really get inside the system. That's not easy. But the first thing to do is really to start creating, to start thinking, and to start trying to do it by yourself. Because it works, actually. That's how I started, and that's how I think everybody started. You can go to school, of course, that's a good thing, but nowadays really you can start by yourself. And I think there's a lot of young kids even who can make wonderful things, and who should go for it and think about it, not just as a hobby, but really as a work you can do, as a job. And I think there's place now for the young people, and they should really go for it. It's against my own interest, because of course that was still my place, but I think everybody should get a try.
So which are your future plans after the release of Tiziano L'Impero del Colore?
And so last year I found my own production company, 313 Film Production,
Yeah.
together with Lorenzo Danesin, who made the sound of this film, and Laura Belloni, who's our producer. And so our goal now, we made a film together, which is about to be released, about Heine Goebbels, this composer. And we hope the goal is to go on actually on that side and still making documentaries, but not only. We would like to try to put a foot into fiction. I'm not really interested in the normal, let's say, fiction that we see normally in TV. I'm more interested in something more related to art, let's say. We'll see what kind of language we can try to build up, but our goal, yeah, is really to go on making films and still related to art anyway.
So thank you very much, Giulio Boato, the co-director of Tiziano L'Impero del Colore. In few days, I will say hours time, at Italian cinemas, and I really hope to meet you in person one day. In the meanwhile, good luck for the anteprima.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was a real pleasure.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye.